Hello and welcome to the Ridiculously Good VA Show with Tracy Daviero. If you are a virtual assistant or want to be one, this is the place to learn the tips and tricks you need to become a ridiculously good VA. I've been a part of the VA industry since 1998, and I'm excited to get to know you and help you build an amazing business. Let's go. Hey there, welcome to another episode of the podcast that teaches you how to be a ridiculously good virtual assistant. Today, I want to talk about rates. It's a very common topic of discussion with virtual assistants at all levels of their business, and we all struggle with it at times, I think. Today's quote is from Duke The Strategist. Don't fall into the irresponsible trap of setting low prices. It will kill your business cold. Low prices attract cheap customers with luxurious demands. That's a hard hitting quote, right? I love it though. I think it's so important to recognize that most of us set our rates too low. And when we do, we end up struggling with those who can afford us. So let's go. We often talk of setting rates in our virtual assistant business. We talk a lot about rates. I see many of you posting questions about how to charge for this service or that service, and I always come in with the same advice. Do the math for how much your services will be, what you will charge for them. Don't just pick a number out of thin air. When you ask someone in a group how much you should charge for a particular task or service, you're picking a number out of thin air. If your business is going to be successful, you have to make sure that what's coming in is going to cover what is going out. And then, of course, you need to leave some room for profit as well. As a service-based business owner, VAs often make the mistake that what we charge is what we make. And then we don't leave room for the things that we need to run our business well. You don't need to gouge your customers, but you do need to run your business like a business. So let's talk about the few of the mistakes that VAs have with setting their rates properly. Number one is not doing the math. The first mistake I see VAs doing or making is not doing the math to set their rates. It's not hard to do, and yet so many people skip it. Figure out how much you need to make. That means your gross revenue, how much you need to pay yourself, how much you need to pay expenses, and how much you want to budget for other things like training, professional development, events, and so on. Business stuff. When you work with real numbers, you can actually build a profitable business. You can see it, and you can get help when you need it. You can learn new things, you can go to events, you can get clients. Do the math, and I think that you'll find that either A, you deserve a raise, or B, you have money to get some of that support or training that you want to get. Number two is starting too low. The next big mistake I see VAs making is starting their rates way too low. If you're doing this or you have done this, don't worry, you're definitely not the only one. It's super common. It's hard to ask people for money, especially for yourself. We always seem to undervalue ourselves. Imagine if you were setting rates for your clients or your spouse or a friend. You would never undervalue them the way that you undervalue yourself. It is a mindset issue. And doing the math, as I talked about previously, can really help you set better rates and feel good about those rates. But what happens when we do start our rates too low? Or maybe I should say, how does that happen? Well, either we haven't set them right to begin with, or maybe we've said yes to a client who told us they couldn't afford our regular rate and therefore asked for a discount or negotiated with us. Because we don't want to turn down the business, we say yes. The number of times I've heard virtual assistants tell me they don't have a lot of money and I want to help them, and then they struggle in their own business is actually quite staggering. It's very, very common. Why we value ourselves, or why we value others, over ourselves, I'll actually never know. I'm not a psychologist, but I know that if you aren't charging enough for your services, you're going to suffer. Your client isn't going to because they're getting what they want. How does that seem fair, right? When you start too low, it's really hard to do increases. Which brings us to our next point, number 3, never increasing client rates. I have helped lots of virtual assistants increase their rates because they don't know how to do it. So guess what? They just don't. They're afraid of losing the client. And without my help, there are probably thousands of VAs, I know there are, out there who don't raise their rates ever. And here's the thing, everything increases in price. Look at the price of a loaf of bread in the grocery store these days. It's outrageous, but we pay it because we need it. Everything goes up in price after a time, and your rates have to also.
Just because you have a contract with a client does not mean that that's their rate that they're going to pay forever. You have to update their rates on a regular basis. I'm sure your contract probably indicates that, but you're not doing it. I say this all the time. I charged $25 an hour for my virtual assistant services back in 2008. If you're charging $25 an hour right now in 2024, it's not enough. It's time to increase your rates. If you have been working with a client for more than a year, it's time to increase their rate. I don't believe in raising rates often. Once a year, totally fine, unless the scope of work you're doing for a client changes. But to keep status quo, you can still raise your rates once a year for no reason at all. Which leads into my next point. Number 4, explaining rate changes to clients. One of the reasons that virtual assistants don't like to raise their rates is that they feel like they need to explain why the rate is changing to their clients. In business, you don't need to explain things as much as you think you do. I always say it's a woman problem because that's usually how I see it. Men do not seem to overthink things in business for the most part. If there's an increase needed, they'll just increase it. Women seem to have to feel the need to convince people that there's a very good reason for something before they ever do it. We put a lot more thought into everything, but especially money. And for sure, a lot of virtual assistants don't like to talk about money. It's uncomfortable. I remember doing all kinds of sales conversations early in my VA journey and being scared to ask for the sale at the end of the call. I didn't like sales conversations anyway, like you probably don't, but that's the purpose of them, isn't it? I gave up so many clients because I couldn't simply ask them if what we discussed made sense to them and if they wanted to start working together. I was afraid of the word no. But if you get the word no, you just need to ask why. Is it not a good fit? Did we not talk about the things that you need? It's the no is so easy, but we still don't like to do it. So instead what I would do was I'd end my calls with I'll put together a proposal and get that to you. Totally avoided the money conversation and any further discussion. I would send the proposal by email, totally hands off, and that made me feel better, right? The client would get the proposal and they would make their decision without even another conversation with me. And very often I would not get the client because I didn't have the conversation. Maybe what they saw in the proposal was not what we talked about to their recollection. Maybe the money shocked them. Maybe they just had somebody else who wasn't afraid to have the conversation about money with them. I never did the follow up either. Lost a lot of clients that way. You have to be able to talk about money with your clients, but you have to do it in a way that's comfortable for you. It's not about hardcore sales stuff, right? But when I changed the way that I did my sales conversations, guess what? I got clients. And you can too. What I do now is what I teach VAs just like you to do. Talk about the client's needs, ask them questions about what they need help with, what's important to them to get help with, and then ask them what their budget is. It makes the conversation about money so much easier for both of you. The client has a budget they're willing to spend. You can let them know what they get done within that budget based on your rates. It's really easy. You're not trying to sell a client anything. It's a sales conversation because you're talking about the possibility of working together. But if you're trying to sell somebody something that they don't think they need, you're probably going to struggle. So be upfront and talk about it right from the start. And then when it's time to raise your rates, don't explain why they need to go up. It's just business. You need to inform them with a reasonable amount of time that the rate is going to change. When I work with VAs to increase their rates, we start with new clients at a new rate. That's the easy part, right? And then we assess the current clients that they're working with and decide how to increase each of them sometimes differently. Especially if you have been working with someone for a while and you haven't raised their rates, it can be a sticky situation, but you want to be able to work with clients. Big rate increases can be challenging, but it's really easy to do them professionally. I can help make it easier. The last thing I'll talk about today regarding rates is packages. Number 5. So many virtual assistants think they just need to create packages and that will solve all of their business problems. They think once they have packages, they can stop tracking their time. You can't. They think once they have packages, they'll make more money. Not necessarily. They think once they have packages, they won't have to talk about money with their clients. You still will. Packages can be a great idea, but you have to create them for the right reasons. You create packages so you can offer a specific set of services to clients. You create packages so you can simplify your billing. You create packages so you can offer tiers of services, usually 3 as it goes. You don't create packages so you don't have to track your time anymore or to avoid money conversations with clients. In fact, you're going to have more money conversations with clients because they're going to want to know what they get for the package or in the package and how it all works. A lot of clients are conditioned to pay VAs by the hour, so they're going to want to know what the difference is. You will also need to keep tracking your time to make sure that you aren't giving your time away by not working efficiently. Once you stop tracking your time, you might take a lot longer to do things because you're not so thoughtful about how you're doing things and being productive. So there you have it. 5 mistakes that VAs make with their rates. If you are making any of these mistakes, the good news is they're really easily fixable. When you start by doing the math, you know why your rates are set where they are, and you're going to be able to see the impact of discounting or not charging enough when you have done that in the past. You'll see it right there in black and white. It's not difficult to do, and it's a really great exercise if you've never done it before. You can pick up my rate calculation package at my website. I will drop the link in the show notes for this episode for you. And let's circle back to today's quote. Don't fall into the irresponsible trap of setting low prices. It will kill your business cold. Low prices attract cheap customers with luxurious demands. Pretty harsh, I know, but when you work with clients who are paying you low rates, they're often high maintenance. That's just my experience. I've seen it. Not all of them, of course. There are exceptions to the rule, but naturally, the lower paying clients are looking to get more. And especially if you negotiated a lower rate with them, because if you're negotiating, you're dropping slightly, or sometimes you're dropping a lot. The client is saying, this is the absolute most I can pay. They're negotiating with their budget in mind. So you're at the top of their scale, and they're going to be very hyper aware of that. It can make doing their work a challenge because they're always second guessing about how you spend your time and therefore their money, right? If you've worked with someone like this before, you know exactly what I mean. Instead, we want to find clients who say yes to your rates, your proper rates, and who value you and your work and happily pay you for it. That will rarely be the low paying clients. So you need to set your rates where they need to be, change them or update them or increase them as necessary, and keep your business profitable and vibrant. If you need help setting your rates properly for your VA business, be sure to get in touch with me. I'm here to help. It's the only reason I'm here at all, as you know, to help you become a ridiculously good virtual assistant. I've helped hundreds of VAs who are stuck get moving, and I would love to do the same thing for you. We can work together in a number of ways: private coaching, the virtual circle, which is my monthly mastermind group, or my plan to profit group coaching program, or you can enroll in some of my self-study trainings as well. I have a lot of options to move you forward. Check them out in the show notes for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Ridiculously Good VA Show. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. For more great resources for your VA business, visit my website at yourvamentor.com. I'll see you back here next time.